Welcome to Aligned Energy with me, Manon, a place where ancient wisdom meets modern health and wellness. People are waking up, questioning who they are and why they're here. For high-performing women, the climb to success can leave them feeling stuck, depleted, or disconnected. But what if the answer isn't in doing more, but in aligning with your true essence? I'm Manon de Veritch, and together with Dr. Pat, this show is about coming home to yourself unapologetically. Through education, ancient wisdom, and modern science, we explore energy as the foundation of healing and transformation. Join us now on Aligned Energy and step into the life you were meant to live. Aligned Energy starts now.
Welcome, everyone. It's so great to have you all tune us in and turn us on. I am Dr. Patton, and I love this journey that I take with Manon. I especially love the show we're doing today. You heard before, and we were just commenting on the opener, weren't we, Manon? We're like, we love that, right?
It just gives me chills every time. It's spot on.
I know. Plus the orchestra music. We could talk about that forever. But this is a very special episode for a lot of us. Unraveling the Superwoman myth and how to reclaim the energy, identity, and ease in midlife. And, I love this because this is such a right-on deal. Now, we're going to talk about this, but you're going to share a story. I want to tell you what really hit me, though, before this episode. And I'm just going to throw it out there. Any of you that watch television, you have seen, can't mention the product, but you have seen the commercial with Jennifer Aniston. And that so hit me so hard for a lot of reasons. Here she is, and the whole thing is about being at the airport and the travel person saying, I really love that, I really love that, and they're not talking about her. They don't even recognize her. And they go on in about 30 seconds, and she has to spell her name, Jennifer Aniston. So the question really does become, and I know that was tongue in cheek, but not for her, because she is one of these invisible women that most of us look at that has made so much headway to becoming and have totally embarked the superwoman aspect of what it takes that we think to become at the top of the food chain. Today, we're going to unravel it. We're going to peel that onion back. We may shed a few tears because if you ever peeled an onion back, you know what that's like. But this is near and dear to you, to Manon, isn't it? And that Jennifer Aniston story, people laugh about it, but man, that hit me like, what? That's all of us. We're invisible. But let's talk about this because burnout's not even the right word. This is about Gen X women. So let's get us going. Who are these amazing women? And what is it about you that you relate to this so deeply?
Yeah. So to frame it, Gen X is, we're talking around mid 30s to, mid 50s, I would say, is what I put in that bucket. And I think the best way to start is just by, just sharing some of my story, because I'm like the epitome of this, which is why it's so close to home, right? So, I was born and raised feeling like I could do anything, the trail had been blazed. I could go out and have a career. I could have a credit card. I could open up my own account. I could be the breadwinner. I could have any job that I wanted. I could be in tech. I could be in STEM. Uh, I didn't need to rely on anybody. It was modeled to me early on that um, if I was in control of my finances and my money and my career, that I didn't need to rely and depend on anybody else who could potentially pull the rug out from under me. And so I just subconsciously had these, control issues, I'm willing to admit. And so that gradually became uh, this, you can do everything, you can be everything. The world is your oyster, to, oh my gosh, I have to be all of these things because it's been laid out for me. And um, what if I don't do it? What does that mean if it's there in front of me and I don't go out and seize it and get it? And then all of a sudden you have kids and you have to be volunteering at the kids' school. And then you don't want to be traveling because, the kids want you to be around at night and you want to be a great mom and you want to be a great wife. Or maybe you're a single mom and you're trying to work and balance, how much do I pay for childcare and how often can I see my kid and still, build a career. So the net of it is you get to a point where you're chasing all of these things that society tells you that you should have. And I feel like Gen X women in particular were that first generation to be told you can be anything, and we've turned it into we have to be everything. And we have to be a 10 out of 10 at everything too. Who said that? Why do we do that to ourselves? So now we're like, you know, trying to bake the baked goods for the PTA meetings or whatever, and trying to not look like we're just phoning it in with how we're showing up. And you can't turn down the travel for work because then you won't get the promotion, and you can't look like home's holding you. Anyway, it goes on and on. You know what I mean? But we were taught to be independent, to be strong, to not rely on anybody, that we could do it ourselves. And I feel like there is a cost to that, right? There's this perfectionism trap that we've got into. There's the adrenal fatigue that's starting to come from that because there's only so long you can be in that hyper fight and flight mode, doing all the things, multitasking. I know that's not supposed to be something that is truly able to be done, but it paints the picture. And so you get to this point where you're just like a machine and you're waking up in the morning and you're just thinking of all the things you have to do and you're going. You're worrying about everybody else, right? I remember when I was traveling, it was like, what are all the things that I have to lay out for everybody before I even can leave? So it's not like you can just take off. So it starts to lead into this loss of joy, but certainly kind of a numbness in general. Certainly your sensuality is numbed. You probably are starting to have some sleep issues. Certainly we're getting some hormone imbalance, in our 40s, um, 40s to 50s. And then it starts turning into this what I call a masculine energy overdrive, right? This constant overdoing, proving, providing, performing, scheduling, goal setting, attaining. It's like making a list, checking it off. Those are all considered
Mm.
masculine energies, right? Or yang energies. Just the go, 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 the push. And that's corporate America for sure, the corporate
Mm.
world.
Yeah, I think we really felt the brunt of this. I want to talk to the women first of all. I think women really got hit hard after COVID because they got into mode. And, somebody announced COVID was over, but it wasn't really. Not if you have kids, right? It was like, oh, it's over. No, no, it was like kids were still battling, working from home, teaching, learning from home. But yet the pressure on women to get back into the office space, see that thing right there. As if you flipped the switch, the light went on, and hello, just go back to work. And that pressure has slowly been relieved, but how do you undo what has happened because of that? And then the place they went back to work was not the place they left prior to COVID. There was so many different pressures. And to your point, you would think that we just stop and take a breath, but we didn't. We worked harder. We did more. We tried to please the unpleasable. And I think what you touched upon, I wish you would talk about this for a little bit, is you talked about the cost of perfectionism. But yet, I don't think women try to be perfect. I think they have to be perfect. This is the world where somebody said you could live a balanced life. Who said that, by the way? I think that was like a man. And and I got to talk to you about this because let's go into this energetic awareness. I remember the day I declared that I don't believe in balance. Oh my God, I got like a million emails like, what are you, lost your mind? I said, wait a minute, I believe in harmony. I didn't say I didn't believe in alignment. And I said, I don't believe in balance. I believe in harmony. And, my music background, it's harmony. The viola gets to play a couple of notes here and there, but guess what? They're important. So let's talk about this workism. Are
Yeah.
you, do you think that I just do you think the Gen Xers know they're in the middle of this soup?
I don't know. I will just define workism for anybody that doesn't know it or maybe has heard of it but doesn't really know what it means. I mean, it's really this concept that's come to be known as building our identities around our productivity, right? And this idea that the more work we do and the more productive we do, that defines us. And so certainly the concept of taking our foot off the gas or backing off and, heaven forbid you breathe and be and these things that, we're told to try to weave into our day. It's like, what? No, what? That's not aligned with what I'm trying to do here. Like, that's not my identity. I take pride in how much I can get done in a day, And that is just so the world that we live in. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question about the perfectionism, I feel like uh you get into this laser focused field with these energetics and I think it comes from what happens when you're in fight or flight, right? And your adrenals release that adrenaline. It gets you into this laser focused, hyper productive mode, and you feel thankful for it in the moment. You actually feel like you're kind of riding this wave. But it turns into this very fast, rapid fire thing that we think is multitasking, but it's us just going really fast
Hmm.
and to our detriment.
Yeah. Let me ask you about this. I want to stay with this for a minute because I want to talk about energetic awareness and, what the journey is here. So we have to change the name of TTR, the network. Somebody said we should change our name. Those who shall not be named said that. So TTR stands for Transformation Talk Radio. And they're like, oh my God, wait a minute. You're like so much more than that. You're TV. So how can you be TTR? Okay, so here we go. Now, ready? This is all around what you're talking about perfectionism in women. So Jessica comes up with a new name. Brilliant. TTR, Transformation Talk Revolution. So I social media or not, I put it in front of my focus group. And the interesting results that came back were shocking to me because for Pat, the network's such a feminine energy and revolution is that's such a trigger word. I mean, I just thought my head was going to explode. And I just went through and I said, well, let me come up with a new name. So I came up with some lame name. And then Jessica's like, why did we change the name? And I realized it became overwhelming. You can't please everyone. So this thing is about the energetic awareness of understanding you're caught in a loop. And I'm not talking a Caitlin Clark basketball loop. I'm talking about a loop between finding yourself, owning yourself, and declaring yourself. And doing, now, I'm edgy, so I am not going to back off of the word revolution because that's who we are. But in the end, I was shocked at the way people feel about it. And
Yeah.
somebody said, that's way too masculine, Pat. Now, I'm not asking you to comment that. It's just a single decision in my day that put my head spinning. And do you know what I did?
What?
I went out to the garage. I had bought a nice little screen for my garage door so I could lift up my garage door and I got all my exercise equipment. So Linda and I went out there, almost killed ourselves on the ladder, but we put up a screen that I could see through and let the air through. I walked away from it.
It's a
Shocking.
fine line, right, between getting consensus and getting too a little bit too much
But isn't
feedback. I've
it,
certainly been in that cycle.
but isn't all about energetic awareness too? Because I got caught in the trap before I step back. And now I have to reclaim this. Let's talk about this because this is really where we're
Mhm.
going now. I'm out of alignment. I was out of alignment until I put the screen up. And I'll hold the end of that story till later. But let's talk about how we get to pinpoint that level of awareness and what we have to do to reclaim that femininity back.
Mhm. Yeah. So when you think about masculine energy overdrive, which kind of paints the picture that it's a little bit to your detriment, it's that constant doing and and pushing, right? So when you are all day at the office in this mode of getting things done and checking up on things and racing around, racing against the time, and then you start to come home, like, I mean, I would be surprised how many people are very consciously shifting their energetics when they walk in their door to home, right? So there's two aspects of that I want to touch on. One is the fact that to be mindful and conscious of masculine and feminine energy in general, and I'm not talking about sexual energetics. I'm just talking about traditional yin, which is feminine, flow, ease, receiving, versus, masculine energy, which again is yang. It's the push, it's the drive, it's the structure. And uh, I would invite you to think about feminine not as weak when it comes to energetics. It's to think about it just exactly that way. It's cyclical, it's creative, it's sensual, it's intuitive, it's receptive. Everybody has masculine and feminine energetics in us. It doesn't matter what gender we are. And that was a really big aha for me a few years ago when I was introduced to this topic. I even, like, as a sidebar, went to this retreat where we did a lot of these exercises about one person was leading and the other person had to follow, and recognizing what that brought up for you to just be receptive and allow that other person to lead was so frustrating for me, right? Because it was a dance. And I was like, they're not doing it fast enough or the right way. I just naturally wanted to, correct them. And I'm like, wow, this is really shocking to me. How else is this showing up in other areas of my life? Certainly, that was what was happening in my marriage as well. I was in my
Mm.
masculine all day, driving, building, charging ahead. And I would come home and that was just my natural state 24/7. So, guess what happens? You can't have two masculine energies and have any polarity. And with no polarity, there's no attraction. And so I was very cognizant that this was starting to happen. We're not only are we batteries, but the battery is a perfect example, right? Like you have to have a positive and a negative charge for there to be this magnetism, this electricity. So if you have two positives or two negatives, you know, it's just not gonna go. So I really like starting to talk to women leaders about this concept of showing up in the workforce consciously with the combination that you feel is appropriate, and that feminine leadership is actually extremely powerful. I would say more powerful because it's magnetic. It's this energy of receiving. You invite, you empower, you collaborate, and and then things start showing up without you just powering. Yeah,
But let's talk
I'll
about that.
pause for a beat there.
I want to get
Sorry.
back to what you said, though, because what's really important is I want to get back to something you said because it was so important. I don't want to blow by it. And what you were talking about was if you have these two energies that are, let's just say masculine and or feminine, okay, whatever. But if you have these two energies, there's no polarity. You see, I want to explain what that means in relationship to your point, because what does that look like for people when they show up in the home? Right? Now I know what that looks like because I've been there. I'm not saying that's you, Manon, but I know what it's like when you've got these two forces in nature that come together and it's always operating, right? I mean, it's like you're just operating. I had this conversation with someone and I said, what if particles didn't cause friction? What if particles actually were soft enough to cause cohesion or harmony? It was like an abstract conversation, but it was out of my mouth. Because this idea of masculine energies come together, I am not sure what we actually solve or resolve ever in history with that. I am not sure. I tried to think about where did we come to an agreement? What does that look like in relationship when I think
Mm,
about that?
yeah. I am such a big fan of opening this conversation with your partner, with your family. This isn't the kind of thing you can just um, do in a vacuum and expect other people to know what on earth is happening and to respond as you want them to, right? You can't just suddenly show up like, I want you to make all the decisions. I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to go take a bath while you decide all of the things. And no, that's not going to work. You're just going to end up getting really frustrated. But if you are the kind of person that you feel like are coming home and starting to take charge, delegate, um, be the one making all the decisions, leading all of the conversations, planning all of the events. And if you have difficulty receiving support or asking for support, that was a really big aha for me. There is probably also a lack of intimacy going on. And just connection with your body and yourself and the ability to feel, because I feel like it's very heady in the masculine, that adrenaline surging through you, but I feel like it ends up in our heads. It kind of manifests as very intellectualized and verbal. And so we stop kind of being in this flowy movement, connection, which is where all the yummy goodness is.
Stiff as a board. We get stiff as a board. And you can see it a mile away. You can see it, especially in relationships. You
Yeah.
can look, all of us have stories. I have grandmama stories. The day grandmama makes the most delicious spaghetti, like a 3-day pasta with the sauce, and puts it on a table with delicious meatball and brajol. And Pop-Up sits down and he says one thing in Italian, but I knew enough. Basically, the meatballs are not up to your standard. Now, that's not Italian, but grandma grabbed the plate, poured the plate on grandpa's lap.
No.
Yeah, yeah, for real. Grandpa's lap and said, in a lot of cuss words, make your own meatballs. Now, this is my family. Everything gets to be love, but it was a year before she made a meatballs. Same thing. I saw the same thing happen in Linda's family with Joan. Kitchen chicken cacciatore. Joan make that is not easy to make. So Joan makes the kitchen. So Bjorn, different culture, gets the chicken cacciatore. He says one thing. She gets the plate, and that is the last time the woman ever made chicken cacciatore. Now, why am I bringing these examples up? Because it's all energy and it's energy awareness. Now, if your kid's in the family or you're like me and you're observing that, you're kind of cheering. You're kind of like, go, grandma, right?
Yeah.
But the impact of that, and what happens with that. So I want to ask you this question because these are people that clearly are connected to their emotions at some level. But when you are there and you create a resentment, or in this case, that's an outward obvious, but when you hold that resentment in seething, I'm going to tell you, if grandma would have held that in, I would guarantee you there would be an implosion down the road about something
Mm-hmm.
benign.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the battery. We do need polarities. But if we don't recognize this, what's the consequence here? If we don't understand these magnetic impacts and what happens when we're out of alignment, what's the end game for us here?
Yeah. Well, certainly when you're talking about a partnered relationship and there starts to be a little, some friction and tension and that animosity, that's or also if you're just both operating in your masculine, if you don't have any attraction, magnetic polarity attraction, there is going to lead to this feeling that, you're not physically attracted to them. You're going to be a little bit more resentful and terse and short. You'll probably stop talking as much to one another because then you feel like you're walking on eggshells and everybody feels like they're, you know, going to offend the other person or whatever they say is going to come out wrong. And then you just start shutting down. So I would say the big signs are irritability, resentment, or disconnection from the body, like we said, um, feeling like you're needing to control everything. I just can't tell you how many women that I know that are like, I'll say something to raise awareness of that, and they're like, "No, I don't. I don't control
Exactly.
everything." And then they'll turn right around in the next sentence, talk about how they're controlling something. Like,
And
okay.
that's why I brought it up because that generation I just pointed to, something about them was given, they were given the expression to be who they are. We're talking about a generation now where I don't know why I feel this, but I really would love for you to talk about. We'll talk more when we come back from break. But I am finding in this generation, especially the women I work through in recovery,
Yeah.
they're quiet. I can't find the word. I'd rather not say something or throw the meatballs on your lap, but I'm going to take it all in and I'm going to be in quiet silence because somewhere along the way, my generation learned not to speak, or we have a different rule of the game. And I'm worried. I'm worried about this generation and the generations to come. Now, I'm a little bit more excited about some of the younger generations because all of a sudden they're speaking through a bullhorn. But
Hmm.
this is an interesting generation. And I think what you're doing to help in a show like this is one, you're shining a level of awareness on it. This is
Yeah.
not easy either, Manon, for
Yeah.
people.
I feel like we're that generation that's caught between the modeling of women should be seen and not heard, to step into your power, use your voice, We're like, what do I don't know. I want to do it, but it feels weird. It's showing up as health problems and thyroid
Yeah,
problems, for example. And,
yeah. Adrenal problems for sure.
adrenal,
You,
yeah.
you know, just, but I want to talk about this because it's a battery. I like the battery analogy,
Hmm.
but batteries, you got to recharge them. I don't care what kind of battery you have, like big batteries, like we use
Yes,
batteries for a lot of things in space. And okay,
they're
so
finite.
you gotta plug something in, got to do something. But do you know what to do? Ladies, do you know what to do? If you are in what we're talking about, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Manon is going to talk to us about how do we reclaim this energy? How do you make sure that one, that reclamation should be on your to-do list? And then two, what can you walk through to learn how to do it? Manon, how do people find out more about you? And we'll take this on when we come back from break, but what's some information? How do people connect with you?
I would love for people to book a call and just tell me what's going on and we can figure out where to start. I'm happy to meet you
Yeah.
wherever you are with any number of different modalities, and you can do that through alignedenergyhealing.com.
I love it. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to get some tools, we're going to get some tips, but more importantly, you're going to get some solutions. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Pat. I get to really do this incredible show with Manon de Veritch, and Aligned Energy with Manon is where ancient wisdom meets modern health and wellness. And part of the journey and part of what you look at here today is this episode is so timely, unraveling the superwoman myth, reclaiming energy, identity, and ease in midlife. And we just walked you through what the superwoman trap was. We walked you through what it's like to have this energetic awareness, and when we say here we are, Manon, to reclaim feminine or reclaim anything in our lives, people always ask how. That's what we're going to talk about now, isn't it?
Mhm. Yeah, because what's the point of talking about all this stuff that everybody knows is the problem if we aren't going to offer some kind of solution and
Yeah,
advice,
no
right?
point. No point.
Okay, so let's kick it off. I have thought through about five to six different tools that I could break this down to, and some of them are more just mindful, being, consciously aware of some of these things, and some of them are more specific action items. So I'll just jump in. The first concept is I just would love you to come to this oxygen mask mentality that a lot of you have heard of this metaphor before, that on a plane you need to put your mask on first before you can help others because you're no good to other people if you are not alive and functioning. So let's talk about what it means to shift your mindset to this intentional leadership of yourself. And when I was going through this, what really came up for me is this all comes back to this theme that we have of honoring yourself, honoring what's coming up as a yes and no for you, deciding and choosing how you're going to answer and respond, um, based on what you're really feeling and intuiting instead of just answering things that you think other people, you think other people want you to say. And it was so timely. I did this exercise yesterday with a cohort where we dug into what it really means to, like, when was a time that you felt like you didn't have a choice? Or another way to say that is, when was a time that maybe you needed to say yes and do something that if you really thought about it and you really had agency, like, you would feel like you could say no. And then underneath that, what were the reasons that you felt like you were saying yes and complying? So just to start by agency, defining what agency is, because I'll admit that a few years ago that one went a little bit over my head, but I have become such a huge proponent of self-sovereignty, sovereignty as a leadership tool. And this is just about leading yourself first so that you can lead others without self-sacrifice. Just take a second to let that sink in. Agency is recognizing that you always have a choice in how you respond, even in challenging circumstances. There might be repercussions. People may be expecting you to answer a certain way, and then if you say no, that might rock the boat or change the dynamic, but you always have a choice. So just think about where in your week, let's say, you've been on autopilot and you are people pleasing, you're avoiding conflict, you're chasing validation. I really want you just to think about this myth of not having a choice. When you feel like you have to say yes, but it's actually a fear of disappointing other people. Why are you really saying yes? Just take a beat, think about that. So, the oxygen mask principle reframed for leaders. I am encouraging you to give yourself permission, um, to know that it's not selfish. It's actually an act of service to preserve your capacity to lead. What do I need today before I can give to anybody else? How can I fill my cup? How can I make sure that my calendar is building in time to do things that are filling up my cup because I can't fill others' cup without mine being full? I also want to take a minute to just point out that I use the term women leaders a lot in leading. That's not just a title. This is something that a lot of women that I've come to realize as my friend group, as I've, started to share some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about, and they're like, "This is really great, but I don't feel like it speaks to me." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? You're totally a woman leader." And I feel like women have this tendency to feel like if their title isn't a director, or a vice president or a C-suite, like that's how they're defining leadership. No, leaders are people that are taking the initiative that's within your family, your community, your church, your, nonprofit, whatever that you're passionate about. You're taking charge. You are you're you're you've got a whole bunch of things that are going on and you're inspiring. You are leading the charge. You're helping other people. You're supporting other people. You're doing all of these things at one time. So just know that I'm talking to you. If you're on this call, you are a woman leader. Own it. And I think just that reframe alone is going to change a lot of things for you consciously in how you hold yourself and carry yourself. Because I've seen that happen in my with my peers. Permission to pause, say no, negotiate, renegotiate the expectations. Dr. Pat was just telling me how she just felt empowered to reschedule a couple of appointments that she felt compelled to agree to. And now she's saying, you know what? I actually can put those off. That's going to buy me the time that I need
Hmm.
so that I can come to what
Yeah,
I already have committed to more fully and
yeah.
resourced.
But I got to tell you, what you just talked about hits another issue that I got smack in the middle of. And it isn't even about my company, but it's about my sport. And, where we play on Saturdays is being challenged. They want to cut our hours back. And, they invited me to a meeting on Saturday, not sure why, but me and three other gentlemen. And I come prepared with my letter and, ready to say, this is what you should do. Um, and boy, what I was met with was really shocking to me because I'm a business person, so I operate like a business person. And, I realize now that the meeting is next Monday, and I spoke to a friend of mine, amazing man, really, my coach. And he said, can you come to the meeting? And I said, I don't know. And he said, what do you mean? I said, "Yeah, well, I might have to work. But I said, I'm not sure what I could add because I'm on a different playing field than you all are. I said, we need to sit down with these people as business people and show them what the benefit is. And, this is one of these things where I'm willing to walk away. And I don't know that I would have done that before. It's not because I don't want to participate or help. I can be in the background. But sometimes you have to realize in this world that you're in, you
Mhm.
have to realize if you're going to come to the table and you're not in agreement, how do you work it out? But there are just some things that you negotiate and negotiate expectations. So what I said to my very dear friend is, maybe we could talk about it Saturday. See, so I didn't be bulldozer.
Yeah.
I didn't like slam the door, but I prepared for this episode and I'm just rethinking it. Like what part of my ego showed up last Saturday thinking that I had a solution that nobody really asked me for? But you see,
Yeah.
isn't this what you talked about? Recognizing that you always have a choice in how to respond. Now, I will tell you, I had another situation, which I'm not going to talk about, where I wish I would have responded differently. But I want to ask you this other thing. Values are so significant and important.
Yeah.
And sometimes the lines get blurred. Now, believe me, I walked out of a 24 and a half year career because my value system and integrity was not in alignment. I was 6 months away from a pension, Manon, and it didn't matter.
Yeah. That's a big deal.
But let's talk about this because it does sound so simple, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not always easy, is it?
So I did this exercise with my business coach a couple of years ago, and I still think about it all of the time, and I tell anybody who will listen. So you roughly know what your values are, but have you ever sat down and actually listed your top four values? Maybe it takes an exercise of writing down all of the things that you want to be, do, and have, and then figuring out by priority what those themes are that align with those. That might be one good way to come up with your values. But just think about things like my top four are adventure, personal growth, wellness or vitality, and just spending quality time with my kids. And a really good way to double check to see whether you're living in alignment with your values is just to look at your calendar. Look at how you've blocked out all of the things and how much time you're spending on each one. Some people color code these things. I'm not there. But you can just you go back and you just do a quick reflection and it's very clear where you are really valuing and prioritizing your time. So if what you think are your values and where you're really spending your time are different, that's a very big wake up call to, just have a reset with yourself. Um, just use your values as a filter to say yes and no,
Mm.
right? Which is what you just said. Is this really where I want to be spending my time and my energy? If I'm sitting here drafting something that nobody even asked me to
To
do,
do.
which value is that, you know, falling under? So yeah, that's a really big one. I also, if you don't have anything else you wanted to talk to about the values, I wanted to just jump right
Jump right
into
in.
this concept of some feminine reset practices that I have. So I would consider rest as a practice too, like honoring when your body needs to slow down and rest and recharge. But just some things that you can do within 5 or 10 minutes, or when you're at a stoplight, even, or just simple things like breath work, right? There's the square breath, which is 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out, hold for 4. This is a way to calm your nervous system and come out of fight or flight. Firemen are actually trained to do this, but this is one of the first techniques that I learned. Any breath work where you're exhaling more counts than you're inhaling is going to
Mm.
bring you down more into a parasympathetic state. So you can do that before or after you get off a call or preparing for a meeting. I do that before this podcast starts just to center, and come out of my head, come into my body, just check in. But you can do things like dancing, singing, um, spending time in nature, just walking around the block, just have a scenery change your state, as Tony Robbins says. But to be more feminine about it, it's really shifting from the doing to the being mindful. And how do I feel? How do I want to feel? And just taking that for a second. We're going to talk in another future episode, not too soon, about um, the erotic blueprint coaching program that I do. And one of the ways that I love that they start every single training, conversation, meetup, call is with pleasure first. And instead of just the kind of energy work that I do where you're grounding and centering, dropping yourself into the earth, connecting above, this is more coming into your body with just breathing and being awareness of where there's pleasure in your body, where it feels
Mm.
good, since we're so conditioned to find pain.
Hmm.
It's actually an interesting exercise to feel what feels good. Maybe it's your knee. Maybe it's your, right shoulder. Maybe it's your cheek. Just you can touch your eyes, your forehead really lightly. You can touch I love doing this where if you can't see me, I'm just touching my hands really softly. And it just feels so nice. And that is a complete reset. Another tool that you can use is in terms of polarity resetting at home. We touched on this, but signal the transition from when you're going from work to home, even if you work at home. Think about ways where you can either turn on a playlist when you're driving home, do some breath work, change into something, put the phone down, and just allow space to receive. Just be mindful that you're shifting from um, giving to receiving, and not solving, not problem solving, not, all of these things. It's all about being receptive and finding ease and softness. Ask for what you need. Here's a novel idea. Ask somebody for what you need softly, clearly, but without apology. And again, don't expect your partner or family members to know what you're doing. They're they're not just going to change by you shifting this energy. Certainly, it brings up some natural adjustments energetically for them. But I have a friend that was like, I just realized I've been living in my masculine and I'm going to start living in my feminine and I'm not going to do all of these things that I used to do. And she was so frustrated because the partner's just like, what's what's happening? And then she
I
would get
know.
mad at him because he wasn't responding. He wasn't stepping up his masculine when, and I'm like, there
Oh,
needs to be a conversation about this. So please do everybody a favor.
yeah.
Also, nervous system support. Everybody's living in fight or flight, which means everybody's got some degree of adrenal fatigue, cortisol overload. These are all real symptoms. You're all, I'm sure, feeling the effects of having heightened cortisol in your body because we just live in a very stressful world. So, ground. What that means is just intentionally recognizing that we're electric. We're sending a cord down into the earth, reminding ourselves that we are nature. These bodies that we live in are from nature. So connect to nature visually, energetically, however that works for you. Put your feet in the grass, bare feet, touch a tree, whatever you need to do. Connect with nature. Magnesium, adaptogens, um, somatic work and energy healing. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of that. It just allows you to soften and your spinal column or your body will release its grip that it's got that's causing all of these physical, emotional, mental problems and blocks if you just can soften and relax and come out of that parasympathetic. The last thing I'll just throw in is sisterhood.
Uh, yeah.
Ladies, like I'm not talking about happy hour after work. I'm talking about like you don't even have to have a meal around it, but just honest conversations, with people that you feel like are also in a similar place as you. Go on
Hmm.
some walks, just open up the conversation, ask them things that you might not have otherwise asked them.
Hmm.
How are you handling this?
Hmm.
How are you feeling about this? What are some things that you do? Here's what's working for me. Is there anything that you feel like you'd like to get off your chest? It's I could not have survived my last 5 years if it weren't for my girls. And frankly, I I feel like I am more open than most people to actually sharing how I'm feeling. I've really noticed that so many people are still just they don't want to be vulnerable. Find at least one person you can be vulnerable
Yeah,
with and open with, and just if you just start inviting this conversation and asking other people, you'd be amazed how much we're all going through that's the same, just if you're single, like snuggles, physical touch. I'm having dinner and a snuggle party tomorrow with some of my
absolutely.
girlfriends, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's
I think
just
we're hungry for that. And you're bringing up so many things and I want people to really hear this because somehow, I don't know if this is true of this generation, but somehow we think we're meant to do everything alone. I have a saying in my coaching classes, if you were meant to do it alone, you'd have been given your own planet. And, part of that though is hard because we are so, as you talked about throughout the show, we're so all of everything you said today. But what you're talking about, you know, there are women that I know that are single that haven't had a touch in a decade,
mm,
that haven't gotten together and just snuggled. And when I think about that, I feel how blessed I am in my own life because I am a snuggler. Hello, like alert. But that alone, the body really needs to feel things. But what you've done today is you've opened a door. Um, and more than that, you've given people ways to change. Yes, don't come home and say, honey, I'm changing everything. I'm masculine now. Okay, there's another way to do that. And if you don't know how to do it, call Manon. Manon, I would love to know your personal message, but I know, believe me, I've done that one. Not that thing, but I've done that announcement. Um, what's the best way for people to work with you, find out about you? And I'd love to have your personal message if you don't mind. And thank you for
Yeah,
today.
yeah. Yeah, just I would encourage anybody to just give me a call. There's no cost. I am happy to be here and just understand where you are, what your goals are, and we can put together what the best way would be to work together. I love combining energy healing with with transformation coaching, which is really helping you learn and feel for yourself what your alignment is and how to move forward yourself. And it's very fast. So my personal message is we're all in the same boat. We're all feeling each other. I know you're not broken. Uh, this is really waking up in a new way, and the world doesn't need another exhausted martyr. It needs your radiance, your fully resourced radiance. We all have gifts, we have passions and purpose, even if it's not an actual thing to do, just it's a way of being energetically. And I want to help you get there because it's a whole new world once you are more conscious about the choices that you're making and the things that you're putting on your calendar and the way you're interacting with the world.
Yeah. Again, how do we find out more about you? And I know you've got some things that you offer people. Just let folks know, would you?
Yeah.
Website and how to get you.
I do private energy healing sessions in Gig Harbor. I also do them remotely. They don't need to be they don't need to be live. And I also have workshops and events that you can go to alignedenergyhealing.com/events and see what events that I have going on. I actually have my very first erotic blueprint event called Awaken the Flame, September 27th in Seattle, which is all about getting into your body and embracing your sensuality. It's not a sexual event, it's really more sensual and just
Mhm.
about pleasure, touch, communication, intimacy, but in a very fun, movement oriented way. And then I just, I have programs and challenges, and I'm putting together some masterminds, and I'm going to do a healing retreat in the fall.
Next. Oh, I love it. And by the way, going to Gig Harbor, what a treat this time of year. I'm
That's right.
telling you. Oh, thank you so much for all of that. And thank you for being you because it's one thing to talk about it and it's another thing to watch someone like you, Manon, actually do it and really help other people, truly help women. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank
Amazing.
you. Thank you. It's an honor.
And all of you out there, you heard a lot today, but I'm telling you, this is like on a teeter-totter. It's like growing up in the Bronx and being on that seesaw, and you're up in the air and your partner jumps off, and you land so quickly. What this show is about for you today is to understand how you can create that beautiful harmony in your life and know exactly what to do. That's what Manon is here to help you with. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Aligned Energy, where ancient wisdom meets modern health and wellness. This is Manon.
And I'm Dr. Pat.
Join us for more inspiration to step into your power and reconnect with your inner wisdom. Be sure to tune in every second Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. I invite you to like and subscribe to Aligned Energy with Manon on your favorite platform. And if you're ready to go deeper, visit alignedenergyhealing.com to book a healing or coaching session or schedule a complimentary discovery call. Until next time, stay aligned, stay empowered, and embrace the energy that is uniquely yours. See you next time.